3 simple adjustments for softer, fuller hair. You might have noticed it lately, just a little more space between the strands when you part your hair. The volume feels different. Not gone, but not quite the same. And maybe, like many women, you've wondered quietly, am I doing something wrong? Or is this just how it goes after 60? That's the thing. So much changes as we age, and hair is no exception. But what often gets missed isn't the change itself. It's the why, and more importantly, the what now. Welcome to Elder Insights. This video is about clarity, not complication. It's not about chasing youth or doing a total hair overhaul. It's about 3 small, realistic shifts you can make, starting now, that gently support your hair's natural softness, volume, and health. Because when you know the reason behind what's happening, your routine becomes more about intention and less about guessing. You'll see how simple tweaks, not products or treatments, can work with your hair instead of against it. Things like the way you wash, how you dry, even the brush you reach for in the morning. And one of the biggest surprises? Most of us were taught habits decades ago that no longer serve the hair we have today. So let's take a closer look together. Because softer, fuller hair at this stage of life isn't about doing more. It's about doing differently. Let's start with the first adjustment. It's something almost all of us do without even thinking. Number 1, the truth about washing your hair. How often and how gently? Let's rewind for a moment, back to something so routine it barely gets a second hot. Washing your hair. You might assume that more washing means cleaner, lighter, fresher hair. And in your younger years, that was probably true. When oil production was higher, daily washing felt necessary and often made your hair look its best. But now, that same habit might be quietly taking softness and fullness away. What many women over 60 don't realize is this. As estrogen levels decline with age, the scalp's oil glands slow down. Your hair naturally becomes drier, thinner, and more delicate. Washing too often or using shampoos that are too strong can strip away what little moisture remains. And the result isn't just dryness. It's flatness, brittleness, a texture that feels rougher, not softer. It makes sense why this goes unnoticed. You grew up in a time when clean meant squeaky. Shampoo commercials praised that stripped, shiny look. You may have even been taught that daily washing was the mark of good hygiene. But here's where it starts to shift. The hair you have now doesn't need to be managed the way it used to. It needs support, not scrubbing. And that begins with rethinking how and how often you wash. Let me share the story of Eleanor, a 73-year-old from Oregon with naturally fine, shoulder-length hair. She used to shampoo every single morning. Wake up, shower, wash, blow dry, out the door. It was her way of starting the day fresh. But over time, she noticed something. Her hair wasn't bouncing back like before. No matter how many volumizing products she tried, it clung to her head by midday. The ends looked frayed. Her stylist gently suggested cutting back to washing just twice a week. Eleanor hesitated. "That'll just make it greasy," she said. But she tried it and added a small change. Switching to a sulfate-free, low-lather shampoo made for mature hair. Something formulated with lightweight hydration, not aggressive cleansing. Within a month, she could see and feel the difference. Her scalp felt calmer. Her strands held shape longer. She noticed less shedding in the shower. And something else surprised her. By doing less, her hair started doing more. That's not anecdotal. It's biological. According to dermatologists at the Cleveland Clinic, overwashing hair that's already dry and aging can weaken the protective cuticle layer. This leads to faster breakage and slower recovery time between wash days. Meanwhile, gentle cleansing 1 to 3 times a week allows the scalp's natural oils to rebalance, coating the hair more evenly, enhancing softness, and reducing scalp irritation. You might have done this for years without thinking twice. If it worked then, it made sense to keep it going. It once gave you confidence, a rhythm. But your hair has changed. Your hormones have changed. And your needs? They deserve to change too. Try this instead. Wash only when needed. Not by the clock, but by how your scalp feels. If your roots still feel clean, let them be. Use warm, not hot water. And choose a shampoo that says hydrating or nourishing, not clarifying. The difference is subtle, but it matters. Massage gently with your fingertips. Don't pile the hair on top of your head. Let the water rinse it through. And if you use conditioner, focus on the mid-lengths and ends, where the hair needs it most. No harsh scrubbing, no rushing. Just care, intention, presence. Because washing your hair shouldn't be about starting over every day. It should be about supporting what's already there. Sometimes, the most powerful shift is not doing something more, but doing it more gently. This is where real softness comes from. Not from bottles, but from better habits. Now that we've taken a fresh look at washing, let's turn to something that happens just after the towel goes on. It's a habit almost everyone does automatically, and it could be flattening your hair more than you realize. Number 2, rethinking the way you dry your hair. Now let's talk about something that seems so ordinary. You probably haven't thought about it in years. How you dry your hair. For most of us, it's automatic. You step out of the shower, reach for a towel, give your head a quick rub, maybe twist your hair up tight while you move on to other things. It's how you've done it for decades, and it always seemed to work. But here's the quiet truth. What worked before may be working against you now. Wet hair is at its most fragile. When it's damp, the outer layer, called the cuticle, lifts slightly. That's completely normal, but it also means your strands are more vulnerable. Add to that the natural changes in your scalp after 60, like reduced oil production, thinner strands, and less natural elasticity. And your old drying routine might be contributing to more breakage than you realize. Think about how many times you've wrapped your hair in a heavy towel and rubbed it dry without thinking. That friction tugs at the cuticle, weakens the shaft, and over time leads to split ends, frizz, and that unmistakable sense of lost volume. Not because the hair stopped growing, but because it's quietly breaking off before it ever has the chance to show up. Susan, the 67-year-old former nurse from Michigan, had this exact realization. For most of her life, her routine was quick and simple. A brisk towel dry and then a full blast from her blow dryer on high heat. She never gave it much thought until she noticed her hair felt thinner. Not just at the roots, but all over. Her ponytail looked smaller. Her ends felt dry, even after deep conditioning. She tried changing shampoos. She bought a leave-in treatment her daughter swore by. Nothing made much difference. Eventually, during a conversation with a stylist who specializes in mature hair, Susan decided to shift her focus, not to fancier products, but to gentler habits. Instead of using a thick bath towel, she began drying her hair with a soft microfiber wrap. She stopped rubbing and started pressing gently, absorbing moisture without roughing up the strands. And instead of reaching for the highest heat setting, she let her hair dry about halfway on its own before blow-drying with the diffuser on low. The results? Subtle, but powerful. Her hair no longer frizzed up by noon. Her ends stopped snapping, and she noticed more volume, not because she added anything, but because she stopped taking it away. That kind of shift is backed by science, too. A study published in the International Journal of Trichology found that repeated high-heat exposure on wet hair can significantly damage the cuticle, leading to cumulative thinning over time. And it's not just the heat. It's the rubbing, the pulling, the habits that were harmless when our hair was stronger, but now need a softer touch. If this routine has felt like second nature to you, that's completely understandable. It probably saved you time. It once made things easier, especially during busier years when every minute mattered. But now, your pace is different, and your hair needs a different kind of care to match. Instead of shaking up everything, start with one gentle change. Reach for a soft towel or even an old cotton t-shirt. Press the moisture out. Let your hair breathe before turning on the dryer. Keep the heat low. And when you do use a dryer, keep some distance. Your strands will thank you. This doesn't have to be a big production. It's just a different rhythm. One that gives your hair a chance to recover, to soften, to show up more fully. And you might be surprised at what a quiet difference that makes. A smoother crown, less frizz around the temples, a natural lift that doesn't need teasing or styling. Sometimes, just letting your hair rest a little gives it more life than any serum could. You've probably done it this way for years without thinking twice, and that's okay. You made the best choice you could with what you knew. That matters. But now you get to choose differently, because sometimes comfort needs a little updating, not to undo the past, but to meet the present with more care. Now let's take a soft breath, because next we're looking at something even more hidden. It's not about how you dry your hair, but something that lingers much longer and quietly affects how full or flat your hair appears day after day. And once you notice it, you'll never unsee. Number 3, the hidden impact of skipping scalp care. You know that feeling when your hair just doesn't sit right, no matter what you do? It looks clean, you styled it the same way, but somehow it feels flat at the crown, a little limp, as if it's lost its natural lift. What you might not expect is that the problem doesn't start with your strands. It starts beneath them, on your scalp. Most women over 60 never learned how to care for the scalp itself. We were taught to shampoo the hair, not the skin it grows from. But that skin, the scalp, is the foundation. And if it's dry, tight, or unbalanced, your hair simply won't thrive. Let's break this down gently. As we age, circulation slows. That means less oxygen and fewer nutrients reach the hair follicles. At the same time, sebaceous glands produce less oil, leaving the scalp drier and more prone to irritation. Add in years of buildup from shampoos, sprays, and conditioners that weren't rinsed out fully, and you've got a surface that's no longer supporting healthy growth. Even if your hair is technically clean, the scalp underneath might be congested, inflamed, or dehydrated. And when that happens, hair can grow in weaker or not at all. The strands lose volume at the root. They lay flatter, and that full, softly lifted look becomes harder to achieve, even with the best products. I want to tell you about Denise, a 71-year-old retired teacher from Arizona. She always had fine hair, but it had body, until one year it didn't. No matter what volumizing shampoo she tried, her hair stayed close to the scalp. She was washing regularly, using conditioner sparingly, but still no lift. It wasn't until her stylist asked her, "When was the last time you exfoliated your scalp?" Denise blinked. She'd never even thought about it. She started small. Once a week, she massaged her scalp with her fingertips while washing, not just running the shampoo through her hair, but really working the skin. Then she tried a gentle scalp serum with rosemary and caffeine, not a trendy oil, but something backed by real studies. And within a month, the difference was clear. She wasn't growing a whole new head of hair, but what she had looked healthier. Her roots had more lift, the crown felt fuller, and she realized something she hadn't considered. It wasn't just about how her hair looked. It was about reconnecting with a part of herself she'd been ignoring. Scalp care isn't flashy. It won't give you instant volume like a mousse, but it works with your biology, not against it. There's even scientific backing for this. A 2016 randomized study in e-plasty found that consistent scalp massage, just 4 minutes a day, led to increased hair thickness in participants over 40. The gentle pressure stimulated circulation, boosted follicle activity, and over time created an environment more supportive of growth. So if you've been skipping scalp care, not out of neglect, but simply because no one ever told you it mattered, you're not alone. It felt harmless, because no one told us otherwise, and it made sense. The focus was always on what we could see. But now, You know better. And when you know better, you can do something different. Try making this part of your routine, even in the smallest way. Use your fingertips to massage in slow, circular motions while washing, not just for cleaning, but for circulation. Give your scalp time. Rinse thoroughly. Let it breathe. And if you're curious, a gentle serum, nothing heavy or perfumed, can add moisture where it's most needed. You're not adding complexity, you're adding connection. That's the difference. And here's the quiet wisdom in all of this. Taking care of your roots, literally, has a way of strengthening everything else. This might have felt like you're anchored during the busier years. The way your hair framed your face, how it cooperated in a rush. It mattered. It still does. You don't need to change everything. Just pay attention to where it begins. So now you've seen it. 3 simple shifts, not dramatic changes, just gentle recalibrations that help bring your hair back to a place that feels softer, fuller, more like you. Not through more products or extra effort, but through a little less friction, a little more attention to what's really needed now. You've changed. Your rhythm has changed. And your hair, it's simply asking you to change with it. This isn't about fixing something broken. It's about letting go of habits that belong to a different season and stepping into one that honors who you are today. Washing a little less often, drying with more care, supporting your scalp the way it supports you. They're small, quiet, but when repeated with intention, they begin to shape something real. Because the truth is, you don't need a complete reinvention. You just need a few things to align with where you are now. So take what resonated, leave what didn't. And maybe, just maybe, try one new thing this week. See how your hair responds. See how you respond. You've done so much for so long. This part, it gets to feel easier. And if this video offered you a bit of clarity, a little encouragement, or even just a breath of calm, we'd love to have you stay with us here at Elder Insights. This is where care becomes clarity. And clarity, that's its own kind of beauty.